Story 1. I miss being a child when the biggest concern was what to play next, not bills and responsibilities. Story 2. People can have political disagreements without resorting to death threats. As a nation, the United States is generally much more harmonious. Story 3. People minding their own business. I remember when it was taboo to talk about politics or religion. Those were personal and private matters. Now you are vetted politically before someone speaks to you about the weather. Story 4. I miss the smell of pipe tobacco smoke from my grandpa. He smoked inside the bathroom and the house. Grandma, who hated it, now misses it too, especially when the grandkids come over. Today, you can still smell it inside Grandma's house. I can't remember the special flavor he smoked, but it came in a blue and black package with a sailboat design, and it smelled really good. I've only smelled it once more at an outdoor dining place a long time ago, but I didn't have the courage to ask what brand it was. Grandma probably remembers. I'll ask her. If I never find out and when I'm older, I will search for this tobacco flavor. Even if I shouldn't take up pipe smoking, when I'm that age, I may not care about it. Story 5. Today's teenagers and children will never understand that a single social infraction did not dictate their entire lives because only the people in the immediate vicinity witnessed it. There was no retribution from adults far away making assumptions about an innocuous incident. There was no wrongdoing to be punished by vindictive social media users who perceive themselves as pious, righteous, and self-anointed with authority. Filming children and teenagers doing foolish things and treating these actions as unforgivable will not create rational, intelligent adults full of empathy. It breeds individuals who scrutinize the behavior of others to feel powerful. Story 6. Simplicity. Everything seems to be so complicated these days. I absolutely dread going to the doctor for this reason. I end up going through 3 or 4 people before the doctor comes in and gives me 7 minutes of his very important time. It takes more than a month to figure out what insurance pays and what I have to pay. Meanwhile, I hold off on some purchases until I see what the bill will be. I've never been to an urgent care facility, but I have to wonder if that is simpler and more straightforward. I am also frustrated with technology problems. Got a problem? Easy. Just search for it online. It turns out, however, that the answer not only doesn't solve my problem but has no relationship to the device I am using, even though I described what I was using in the question. Like, simple. Just go to Z and then do Y. But there is no Z and therefore I am unable to do Y. I end up spending a couple of days searching and figuring out the problem. Useful artificial intelligence? Sometimes. If you are interested in a system that can aggregate results to answer your question. But if you want a system to make a 3-dimensional rendering of a standard room that is 11 feet by 30 feet, it will require a plastic triangle, a piece of paper, and a pencil because you'll need to do it yourself. Ask a question about a marketplace and get a quote from the handbook. Saves you that 3 minutes it would take to look it up yourself. I am trying to migrate messaging to a new phone and have apparently lost all my previous chats, including web access. So imagine me today, searching for those, and at the end of the day, probably having to say to myself, oh well, they weren't important anyway. Story 7. How colorful everything used to be. Seriously, it feels strange to say this, but everything is getting dull, faded, and ugly. There is no excitement in anything anymore. I remember in the 1990s that grass used to be green, really green. Felt like the grass was so healthy and strong. Now it simply looks like grass. Story 8. No internet, no cell phones, no computers. Just me, my bicycle, and my friends spending 12 hours a day outside, no matter the weather. Story 9. Civility, reasonable political discourse, understanding, and tolerance are just a few things that are lost. Story 10. I miss when people actually answered their phones. There was no ignoring calls and then texting back hours later as if nothing happened. If your phone rang, you picked it up, had a conversation, and that was it. Felt much more direct and personal. Story 11. Community. I feel that we have lost our sense of community as a whole. We have all become so introverted, especially since the pandemic, that we have become comfortable with staying home. I find myself overthinking any invitation when I never hesitated before. I just feel we aren't there for each other like we used to be. The thought that someone is just a call away now is enough. Where I felt growing up, I was always around people. But now we seem to prefer to do our own thing, likely because there were 2 years when we had to manage on our own. While we have more means of communicating with each other and can get in contact with someone within minutes or hours at most, it has taken away the importance and necessity of seeing people. Invite people over for dinner, tea, coffee, or anything. Go out and see what's happening in your community. Attend a show, a concert, try a restaurant you haven't visited, or simply go out for a walk and interact with people. I find that while social media can do a lot to bring people together, we tend to get caught up in the things that divide us. Let your guard down. Try something new. The world is full of amazing experiences. Go out and explore it. Story 12. I used to wake up a few hours before school in 2006 to play RuneScape on my family's shared computer. I would play for a bit, then go to school and talk about it with all of my friends during physical education and lunch. I would draw little things from RuneScape in my notebook while in class and make a plan for things I wanted and quests I needed. I specifically remember drawing Elvmage and Zazima's name a lot. When I went over to my friend's house for a sleepover, we would sneak to his family's shared computer and play all night. He didn't let me play as often, but it was a lot of fun to watch. We spent a lot of time in Draenor and looking at the cool people standing in front of Varrock Castle with their expensive gear. Story 13. I miss when Saturday morning cartoons were significant. Waking up early, grabbing a bowl of cereal, and watching shows that aired only once a week made it feel special. Streaming is convenient, but it took away that excitement. Story 14. Raw humor. Few things are too far. They would never put All in the Family on television now. It's just a confusing concept to me. Are we devolving through moral constraints? Story 15. I miss when things weren't so expensive. Inflation is affecting us. Hopefully, we will see some relief soon. Story 16. Having no responsibilities and the innocence of childhood will always be unique and lovely days that I have left behind. They will never return. But at least I am becoming the dream version of myself now, growing up. Story 17. I miss when people were more present before everyone had a smartphone in hand. Hanging out with friends meant actually talking, not half listening while scrolling. Movies, concerts, and simply sitting around felt more immersive because no one was trying to document every moment for social media. Story 18. The cost of living is low, including rent and other expenses, making it more livable than it is right now. Additionally, people used to hold politicians accountable, but now they care more about the political affiliation of a politician than whether their proposals are beneficial to the country and our well-being. Story 19. I miss having my grandparents to spend time with. I miss talking to my siblings. I miss my grandchildren when they were little and thought my grandparents' house was the best place to be. I miss my late husband sharing a joke every day with me. I miss a lot, but I have great memories. Story 20. I went to a bustling mall last week, and I think we were the only customers there apart from the employees. Story 21. Being able to hear what is said in TV shows and movies is important. Everything sounds so mumbled and muffled now. Story 22. I miss the old buildings. The new ones have no character. They are boxes with some windows made as cheaply as possible. Story 23. I really like the fact that when something became popular, it stayed on everyone's mind for months, not just for a week or a couple of days like it does now. Story 24. Not having to second-guess everything. From misinformation to biased reporting, to adults completely fooled by social media or poorly made videos. There used to be trusted individuals you could talk to, people with life experience. But those individuals have been turned into misinformation mouthpieces. Now, when I am told anything by anyone, my automatic reply is, "Where did you hear or read that?" Because those who didn't grow up on the internet are not immune to its empty promises. Story 25. Companies take pride in their branding and make it exciting. This is the complete opposite of what we see now. For example, compare Pepsi cans from the 2000s to those of today. Story 26. In-ear headphones and cell phones not being a thing made me reflect on a recent train journey. The driver told a funny joke over the intercom, and I noticed we passed a lake with a rainbow above it. I was the only one who noticed both, despite the train carriage being almost full, which made me quite sad. The absence of Tinder and swiping also has significant implications for gender relations. The phasing out of customer service in favor of ineffective chatbots presents another challenge. The non-existence of Google and Amazon changes the landscape of information and retail dramatically. The lack of online adult content further impacts gender relations. Lastly, the concept of not having Donald Trump as president brings its own set of reflections. Story 27. People should not be enslaved by their devices. Seeing someone excessively engaged with their phone makes me sad. Story 28. Politics was once boring and focused on administration. Now it is intertwined with entertainment. Everything you do and see feels like politics. Story 29. I miss when plans actually meant something. If you said you would meet someone at 7, you showed up at 7. There were no last-minute messages, no ghosting, just people keeping their word. Felt more personal and people seemed more present. Story 30. I miss the days when you could just knock on a friend's door without texting first. There was no planning weeks in advance and no worrying if it was awkward, just showing up and hanging out. Everything felt more natural and less complicated. Story 31. Video rental. Sure, we have Netflix and YouTube and streaming now, but there is just something nostalgic about the good old movie Fridays when the family gets together with popcorn and plays a tape in the VHS player. Story 32. Saturday morning cartoons. Waking up early, grabbing a bowl of cereal, and enjoying a relaxed morning with no responsibilities. Story 33. The internet about 10 years ago had a clear distinction between itself and the real world. Internet culture and humor were niche aspects, separate from the broader culture. At that time, the internet was considered a space for enthusiasts, and its darkest corners remained obscure and hidden. Today, the internet and the real world are intertwined. The culture and humor we engage with in our daily lives are influenced by online content. The darkest corners of the internet have become mainstream thoughts. Many people no longer watch television, movies, or anything else. They primarily consume internet videos. We have also witnessed the negative consequences of the attitude that prioritizes podcasts over news. The internet and the real world have merged, and the most troubling aspects of each have become dominant. Story 34. Children being able to be independent at a young age is important. My husband and I were watching Goosebumps last night and commented on how the world would not allow kids to run around town without an adult present. It's disappointing because I want my son to have that freedom. Story 35. The Florida Keys used to be a wonderful place. Now it is filled with people often seen on cruise ships, representing the lowest common denominator of American society. Story 36. Poor artificial intelligence integration and search engine optimization have ruined the internet experience, and I miss the simpler times. Story 37. Social media is becoming more genuine. Now everything is encouraging me to subscribe to a website, newsletter, or content service. Story 38. The family was close-knit. After the passing of certain key individuals, it just isn't the same. Story 39. From where I come, during summers a vendor used to come to sell gola, which is basically shaved ice with flavored syrup on it wrapped around a stick. We used to beg our moms to give us money to buy that as children. I don't see them much anymore. Maybe I just grew up. Story 40. Going way back, I miss local and national news that had only one person delivering the news. There was no need for a sports reporter, weather reporter, local news reporter, entertainment reporter, traffic reporter, fashion trends reporter, and so on. Story 41. Holidays as a child were enjoyable. Everything was more vibrant, especially Christmas. We embraced bright Christmas colors and vintage decor instead of dull beige. Story 42. The blissful, unrecorded chaos of existing offline. When cringe died in the moment instead of trending forever. Story 43. Two things. First, people leaving their pets at home versus those who refer to their dog as their child and insist on taking it everywhere. Second, people not becoming upset if you stop by to visit them without making an appointment first. as if you were going to the dentist. Story 44. Riding around the neighborhood looking for the pile of bikes that indicated where everyone was hanging out, or just listening for the sound of a football game in someone's backyard. Story 45. Having a smoke with the teachers during break time, leaving various lessons through a ground floor window to wander around for a cigarette, getting cigarettes from the same regular people for 10 years, smoking together on a random Tuesday, getting drunk before a Monday night job. The list is endless, just as it will be for all older people. Story 46. Asking women out in person was stressful. It was a gut check moment. Let me tell you. Now you can just text someone to hang out. Young people have it easier. Grandpa. Story 47. I miss when video games came complete with no updates, downloadable content, or microtransactions. You bought a game, played it, and that was it. No waiting for patches or extra charges. Just a full experience right out of the box. Story 48. Back when communication wasn't always constant, there would be a voicemail message on the answering machine, and you could call back whenever you wanted. There were no constant expectations, and I miss when the internet was only screen names and never personal information unless you were talking to friends in real life. Story 49. I miss when the internet was just for fun. There were no algorithms pushing content, no endless advertisements, no social media drama, just goofy forums, unusual flash games, and hanging out on instant messenger with your friends. Felt much more relaxed. Story 50. Knowing that someone wasn't watching, I have had to explain to my children several times that the school reads their emails regularly. The school monitors them on camera all the time. Ring cameras will capture them if they pull a foolish stunt. I remember egging my ex's car without concern and enjoying every moment of it. I can't do that now. Story 51. The brief period when clear plastic versions of various electronics were made allowed us to see their inner workings. It was fascinating to observe what made them function. Story 52. Watching television shows with my siblings and cousins on weekends was a cherished time. We enjoyed classic shows like Ed, and Eddie, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, The Powerpuff Girls, Teen Titans, Jimmy Neutron, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and SpongeBob SquarePants, to name a few. We often fought over who would get to use the Nintendo DS or our old computer next. I remember that computer being so loud. Story 53. The pure, unfiltered excitement mixed with a sense of accomplishment of being able to afford to buy just one video game that I had been looking forward to and reading about for months. It's the physicality of it that I miss. The drive in the car, finally finding it in the store, emptying your pockets of every penny you had for it. The box feels like a treasure with its weight in your hands. The sharp crack of the seal as you open it, revealing the cartridge or disc and the manual, which all feel like hidden gems. Every detail was exciting, the instructions a reminder of the adventure that awaits when you get home. Truly valuing it and playing it over and over again. Gaming subscriptions are completely soulless in comparison. Story 54. Remember when Netflix had everything for one price? Now I need 5 subscriptions just to watch the shows I enjoy. This isn't the future I anticipated. Story 55. Genuine discovery. Everything is easily accessible. Even news, which is not extraordinary, just simple news, can be found in seconds. In the past, you had to wait for the news or read the newspaper in the morning. This shifts your sense of discovery when everything is available at any moment. Story 56. I miss the old days before COVID. I enjoyed striking up conversations with random people. I like to chat, and I feel like people just don't want that anymore, or perhaps my own mindset has changed a bit. It's probably a little of both. Story 57. Snow days off from school. Patiently waiting for the radio announcer to call out my city name. Then, joy erupts instantly and is beyond words. Some of the happiest days of my life. Story 58. Being unreachable means no constant notifications, no pressure to reply instantly, just pure freedom. You can go outside, live your life, and if someone needs you, they just have to wait. Simpler times. Story 59. I know this is a basic answer, but as a kid, my mom and grandma used to go to Blockbuster and our favorite restaurant. I don't miss the Blockbuster store as much as that tradition, but I feel this still counts. Story 60. less access to the entire wealth of knowledge and communication. I remember seeing an interview a while back where the interviewer asked, "Do you think social media has created an influx of people who are just awful to each other?" The response was, "I think those people have always existed. We just gave everyone a platform to express it." Think about it. Without social media, the individual with unusual opinions had to go into town and voice their thoughts. And in most cases, people would say, "Oh, that's just Joe, he's a flat earther. Nobody knows what he's talking about." So we largely just ignore him. There would maybe be two people in his community who would support him before. But now, Joe can go on a conspiracy-laden rant on multiple social media platforms, and there will be thousands of like-minded individuals everywhere who will agree with him, creating a sense of community he never would have been able to find. Social media should have been a blessing, but it has become a kind of curse. Story 61. Limited television. As kids, we had 3 channels and a limited window for children's programming from 3 to 5 p.m. or Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Because of this, we were encouraged to go outside. In the past, rainy days were genuinely disappointing. Story 62. You used to be able to put a website online and actually get traffic. What happens now? Google shows an artificial intelligence summary and links to services they own, along with irrelevant content. People go to social media and complain about how much Google is lacking, but they don't bother trying anything new. Social media platforms reduce the visibility of any post with links, and even if people do see your link, these platforms have spent years training users to endlessly scroll without ever clicking away. Every search engine optimization article, an expert still says, "Just write good content." What good does it do if nobody is allowed to see it? They killed the open web and turned it into cable television. And most people didn't even notice. Story 63. Music videos are precious. I didn't have MTV, but I used to watch American Top 40. Back then, if you stumbled upon a music video, you had better sit down and pay attention because you might never see it again. Story 64. The prestige of finishing a video game. In the past, you could not save a game, making it quite an honor to complete one. Additionally, with the lack of walkthroughs, players had to grind and figure out how to solve the puzzles or navigate the maps. This also meant risking the use of all your lives. Story 65. I wish I could comment, but I was born in redacted, so I can't really say much. But seriously, I wasn't born in the old days, but I wish we didn't have so much access to electronic devices because the brains of Generation Beta are slowly but surely deteriorating. Story 66. Being disconnected is increasingly rare. Nowadays, it is expected that you are reachable at all hours. Everything is online, and data breaches and privacy attacks are constant. It can be exhausting and frustrating. Also, I have strong negative feelings towards artificial intelligence. Story 67. I wasn't around back then, but something I want back from the old days is a jukebox in every restaurant. You can still find some in 1950s diners, but they should be more common. They look great. Story 68. So many things. I miss how intertwined we were with older media. Growing up as a kid in the 1990s and early 2000s, I watched a lot of I Love Lucy, Happy Days, The Munsters, The Beverly Hillbillies, and Looney Tunes from the 1960s. These shows were regularly on television, with I Love Lucy and others airing on Nick at Night after 9 p.m. It feels like, in general, kids these days have so much control over content that they never give themselves the opportunity to see these old shows. If a program wasn't made in the last 10 years, it seems to them that it doesn't exist. Story 69. People with the ability to cross roads without at least one eye on a mobile device. Where has road safety gone that was once taught in schools? Story 70. When young men in their teens, 20s, and 30s could joke around and have positive conversations about various topics instead of turning every discussion into complaints in politics. They wanted to engage and talk with each other, not just at each other. Story 71. Watching television together in person was a common way for friends or family to gather and spend hours together. Story 72. Being able to knock on someone's door and visit them as a guest has changed significantly. If you do that now, you may be viewed as unusual. In many ways, it used to be easier to socialize. As kids, we would go to each other's homes and ask to play, with no need for planning or texting. I still remember one time when my friend failed his test and faced serious consequences from his parents. I can still hear his scream as we passed by his house. Story 73. The problem with the old days is there is always someone with older days than yours, and different experiences yield different results. Ultimately, it's always nostalgia, not reality. I was fortunate to live during the rise of the internet and cell phones. I experienced both worlds. To make a call, you would need to go to a phone booth. However, if I had to choose, I would prefer social networks. I truly believe they will be the downfall of humanity. If you want to build a community, just bring back internet relay chat. Make internet relay chat great again. Story 74. My grandparents had many VHS tapes. I loved using a rewinder they had that was shaped like a sports car. It was my favorite toy as a child. Story 75. The feeling in the late afternoon during the summer holidays when I was about 10, no matter how good life has been, is one I can't regain. I miss that feeling of being king of the world, surrounded by friends. Here I am at 28, feeling old. Story 76. My happiness. Life was much better for me when I was truly happy. Now, I don't feel much of anything. Story 77. Being a child and playing around with friends in the neighborhood was enjoyable. There was nothing to worry about. Story 78. Being able to actually go offline is increasingly important. Nowadays, it's expected that people are available at all times. You have to make a conscious effort to not be online. Story 79. At the risk of sounding outdated, there is no social media or internet in everyone's hands. It is difficult to reach people even when you are with them. There are always distractions, and I miss having real connections with the people I care about. I also miss being able to afford a home. Story 80. Being hard to reach. Owning what you purchased, not subscribing to it. Not being tracked by data brokers every time you bought groceries. There used to be more privacy and freedom. Story 81. Safe cities in Germany. Visiting a Christmas market without worrying about being harmed or run over by a vehicle. Story 82. I did not give a thought to food and shelter. My parents made a good living. Now I worry every day about losing my job and becoming homeless. Story 83. I miss my time at university. I remember the feelings of optimism and purpose, the fun times, the sense of change and self-improvement, the easy friendships, and even the challenging coursework. Life felt uncomplicated, with spontaneous moments, parties, and the exciting feeling of randomness in everyday experiences. There was a constant sense of adventure and new experiences around every corner. Story 84. My youth was spent hanging out with friends. Whenever I received a call, it was one of my buddies suggesting a road trip or something equally fun. Now, when I receive a call, it is either spam or my boss needing something from me. Story 85. Being alone with my music, I know I can still technically do this, but it is a lot harder now. I want to turn off everything and listen to the music, soaking in its essence. Story 86. One thing my friends and I used to do in our late teens was hop on our bikes and ride around the downtown area in the middle of the night, hanging out in parking garages or loading docks of some businesses. Doing that now might get you fined, especially as a 29-year-old. It was safe then, but now you might get mugged. Story 87. Not being expected to be constantly available is important. People used to leave messages on your answering machine, and you would return their calls when it was convenient. Nowadays, if you don't respond to a text for a couple of days, it is considered rude or ghosting. Story 88. A quiet world. I enjoy walking to places with no phone signal. It's nice to get away from a world that never stops talking. Story 89. The prices are astonishing. If I told my younger self that a meal at McDonald's would cost around $10, I would have looked at myself and said, "What drugs are you on? I clearly need to avoid them." Story 90. People would seemingly just disappear from existence when they weren't around you. If you didn't see a family member for years, you had no idea what happened during that time. We've lost the opportunity to catch up. Story 91. You call someone once to make an appointment. Both you and the person arrive at the appointment on time without any hassle. I miss that. Story 92. Waking up early on weekends to watch cartoons, role-playing as Pokemon and Beyblade characters, obsessing over World Wrestling Entertainment, and secretly watching fashion television. Good times. Story 93. Hope for the future. I am holding on to it now, but give me another 10 to 20 years and I can see it diminishing. I hope I am wrong. Story 94. Orange streetlights when it's snowing create a lovely glow. The new white lights do not have the same effect in snowy conditions. Story 95. Less division within society encourages better listening skills. People are often discredited immediately based on their political beliefs. I wonder about the purpose of these posts that seek information. Are they innocent conversation starters or attempts to gather information for ulterior motives? Story 96. Everyone is now offended, mainly on behalf of others, through virtue signaling and protesting. Story 97. I used to be proud to be an American. That pride is long gone now. My grandfathers and great-grandaunt served without recognition. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.